Hello everyone, welcome to this video. If you're following along my other videos, this is the fourth one in the series where we have already installed our virtual machine and installed the Windows Server 2022. We have installed the role Active Directory Domain Services, and right now in this video we're going to go ahead and promote this server to a domain controller, and we're going to configure our root forest. So at this time where we are is, if you look at this one, we have only two roles installed, the Active Directory Domain Services, uh, but it's not a domain controller yet. And we have the file and storage. There are no other roles that are available. So again, I'm going to click on this one and click on promote this server to a domain controller. So that should begin this configuration wizard, which is the Active Directory Domain Services configuration wizard. Now in this one, it's saying select the deployment operation, and you have three different choices. Add a domain controller to an existing domain, which we do not have. Add a domain to an existing forest, which we do not have either. Add a new forest, so that is what we're going to do. For our lab, you can use anything. It has to be a fully qualified domain name, meaning you gotta have a dot at the end. So for this, I'm just gonna use cloud dot local. You can use really anything in our lab setup. You can use cloud.com, even cloud.net, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use cloud.local, and this dot is important. If you do not use a dot, a installation is not going to work. Then hit next, and once we hit next, this next page, although we are using Windows Server 2022, it's saying what is the forest functional level. Do you want to support, do you have other version of Windows Server 2000, Windows Server version that you want to support? So if you want to support even the older version, you can go back, but I'm just going to go with the default functions in here. Okay, and what I'll do, I'm gonna go ahead and look at couple more things here. If you look at it, your DNS server name, that checkbox you can turn it off, but this checkbox is selected by default, and in my opinion it's very good to have this DNS service installed in your primary domain controller server. So I would say keep this one on. For the global catalog, you gotta have at least one global catalog in your environment. So if you see this, you cannot even turn it off. And this one, the read-only domain controller, the option is not available to me at the moment. The next thing that you will do always, anytime you are creating Active Directory domain services, you have to provide this directory services restore mode password. Okay, this is important. And again, use a complex password. Let me put something in there. And once this configuration is done, you can hit next, and in here you always see this warning: a delegation for this DNS server cannot be created because the authoritative parent zone cannot be found. And do not worry about this warning at the moment. And the specified DNS delegation option, you do not have to do anything on here either. Hit next, and here Windows is going to look for the net bias name, and that is really anything before the dot that we have used should show up as the net bias domain name. So we have used cloud.local, and if you notice, the cloud showed up as the net bias domain name. So when it's promoted as a domain, when you're going to log in, you will say cloud, then forward slash, then whatever the username you're going to create. Okay, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit. So at this time, hit next. And once we do that, let's see what happens. Now this is about some folders where it's going to store the database, where the log files are going to be stored, where the sysvol folder is located. I'm going to go with the default options. Hit next, and here you have some quick review of the configuration that you have done. You can view the script, take a look at it, save it in a different file if you want. And at this time I can hit the next button, and it is now verifying the prerequisite for the domain controller operation. and it has to be validated before Active Directory domain services is installed on this computer. So although you have some warnings in here, you see this tick mark says green. It says all prerequisite checks passed successfully. Click install to begin the installation. That means I know although we have some warnings, overall most of the checks are good. So I'm just going to click on install, and that should start the installation process where my Active Directory domain services will become a domain controller. Okay, so let's give it a minute or so, and then this service should get finished. So based on the computer power and RAM and CPU available to you, it may take some time for you to configure this. So what I'll do, I'll just pause the video for a second. If you're following along with me, you can also pause the video at this time and then come back to this one when this installation process is done. Okay, so let me just do that for a second. Still going on. I actually didn't even have to pause. It says you are about to be sound out. If you see this message, just click on close. That means you are very close to be done with the installation process. Okay, and now I actually didn't even stop the video. It just I was going to, but then the restart happened, everything installation was done. So that's about it. So now it's restarting my machine, and what I'm expecting to see this time when we're going to log in, it will present me a domain username and not the local username. And the way to figure it out what we are doing, I'll show you how to figure that one out. Okay, so now it's loading, and hopefully it will not take too long to load. So just give it a minute. Maybe this is the right time to pause the video for a second once I have the now the applying computer setting. So in my experience, even the applying computer setting may take some time, and it may take, you know, 5 minutes even, for based on your computer configuration. So be patient and let it run through the applying computer setting. Once it's done, you should be presented with the login window, and let me just pause and come back when that window is presented to me. So if you're following along, just be patient and let it do its stuff. Hey everyone, so the DC controller upgrade is done, or the promotion is done. So let me just try to log in, and again I'm going to go to input, keyboard, and insert control alt del. And this time if you see, now it is not telling me just log in as administrator. It's giving me this my domain name, which is the cloud, the netpass portion, and then the administrator. So let's now give me my password again and hit enter. And this is going to be my first time after I have configured my Active Directory domain services and promoted this as a domain controller. And what you will notice that at this time, once this loads, I'm expecting to see an additional role, which would be the DNS role, that you will see that has got installed in this particular server, which is still our domain controller 1. Okay, so coming over here, this is the Active Directory that we have installed in the last video. This is the domain controller, or the DNS server, that we have now got installed as part of the domain controller process. So very quick, if I now do a cmd and ping cloud.local, I should be getting my response back, because this is the domain that we have configured in this video, and we have installed the DNS server in this particular Active Directory domain services, which we have promoted to domain controller. So what I would expect to see a DNS role in here. And also you can go to the tools. There are a whole bunch of new tools available to you. I'm just quickly going to go to the DNS and go to the server, and in the forward lookup zone I should have this domain.local or cloud.local zone domain created. and in here I have the startup authority name server, and there we go. Here it's telling my host name, which is the IP to our uh, domain name mapping, domain name to IP mapping that is also available to me. So that's about installing and how to promote your your Active Directory ADDS to a domain controller, and how to use and check that your DNS server is properly configured. In the next video, what we'll do, we will configure our domain controller 2 and make sure the domain controller 2 can talk and use this DNS server for its own operation. Thank you for watching this video.